Welcome back to the Nerdrotic podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I come to you from nerdrotic.com, and this is the American Gods feedback show. Looking back at season 1, answering some questions. I'm live at San Francisco, and I am with my co-host down in Los Angeles, John Reed. What's up, John?
What up? How's it going, man?
It's going good.
It's a late night as usual.
Yes.
But a fun one. Like it's Doctor Who American Gods night, and it's sad that it's no longer American Gods night, but we're milking it for all we can with this feedback show. I just thought it would be fun to go through the comments that we've gotten throughout the season, talk about some stuff about, answer some questions and address some comments about our analysis and about the book. So this is going to be spoiler. I mean, this is going to be the first one. We tried and maybe failed at some points to keep our general discussion of each episode contained to what we got from that episode. Sometimes we talked a little bit about, where the essence of it came from in the books, but we tried to be, we weren't spoiling who somebody was, or, if there was some big mystery, we were trying not to spoil that thing. And again, we failed a couple times. Like, I forgot that some things were mysteries just because after you've read something and when you're watching it, like you equate two things and you forget that it was even a mystery in the first place. So, we do the best we can. But this episode, this feedback episode, we're taking off the gloves. We're using all of our knowledge about the books. We got questions about it, so we're going to answer those things. We're going to get into who Shadow is. We're going to get into who Mr. we know who Wednesday is. We're going to get into more about Wednesday. We're going to talk about Mr. World a little bit. So just beware. We are leveraging outside knowledge. We're not just talking about what we've seen so far in the series. So we'll say this. If there's any other live viewers, we'll try to say this a couple more times throughout the episode. But if you're listening to this in the archives and you do not want spoilers, go away. Bye. Sorry, this isn't the podcast for you. We'll be back maybe in the off season to talk about some stuff, and we'll be back next season. But this is not the podcast for you if you're scared of spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, please come back.
But, go away for now.
Yeah, we don't want. I mean,
and then come back.
Total spoiler heads here, but the book has been out for 15 years, something like that.
Yeah, but some people just want to watch the show, and also we've got some people. I know that we have some people listening to our podcast who are our show only viewers. They're not book people, and I just want them to know. We'll be more conscious of it next season when we're covering it for sure. But this podcast is not for you. It's not for the show only people. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think the book, I mean, as much as they're straying from it anyway, I could see them ending it completely different. Actually, I pretty much can count on it. I think the same basic ending will be there, but how we get there is we're already way off book. So, and in a very good way. And I was very pleased. This is an occasion where the show is better than the book, I believe, and I like the book. I do.
Yeah. So again, we're going to be going through some questions and comments, and then we're going to do just a general discussion about how we think this adaptation is going so far, and the podcast in general, and why we're doing this. So, Gary, you ready for the first question?
Ready.
Okay. So this was in episode 5. Misha HJ says, media is more powerful than Tech Boy because media covers books, magazines, newspapers, movies, the main mass of communications, broadcasting, publishing. So basically she's saying media is the more powerful between the two new gods. And I'm going to take that as a question. Do you think, or who do you think is more powerful between media and technology boy? We talked about it a tiny bit on that podcast, but we didn't go into the books, and we didn't really, we were kind of musing about it. So just like, if you were to make a definitive statement, who would you want on your team of gods more, media or technology boy?
Oh boy, before I answer that, in the context of the book, media was television news, and when the book was written, it was clearly more powerful than Technical Boy. They have melded into one god at this point. And I guess I'll answer it with a question. Is Technical Boy just the technology that provides the content and media is the content? Because that's the one I'm really not sure about, because I would say media is more powerful if media is the internet too.
It's like NBC, Universal, Comcast, where like you've got the content creator and then the content provider, and Technology Boy is the content provider and media is the content creator. I mean, that's the way my brain separates it out. Because, essentially Technology Boy is utilizing media. So he's like as powerful as media plus his own power, because he's the conduit for media at this point, right? But that's not really the distinction, because media, so I think that's the distinction I'm drawing. I don't know if that's the distinction you agree with.
Okay, here's how I see it. I see Technical Boy is the internet.
Okay.
So I see he is the internet, so he is clearly more powerful.
Yeah.
And media, it's funny because the American gods are now trapped, and they go into this in the book. They're trapped in the problem that the old gods are having right now is irrelevance. Now, media is nowhere near being irrelevant yet, but the internet is clearly more powerful than network news now. And I could say this is probably the first year that's happened. This is the tipping point. It's just going to get bigger.
Network news on the internet, and you can get other stuff that you can't get from network news on the internet. So I agree.
Yeah, and we all saw this coming. It was can I tell a quick little story about the internet?
Yeah.
Okay, so those of you who've watched this podcast know that I like Shadow, I spent a little time in the joint. And when I went in, it was 1991. It was late 1991. And I got out late 1990. No, late 1991, and I got out in late 1993. So when I went in, there was no such thing as the fucking internet. I'd never fucking heard. I mean, I heard of it, but I mean, it was like dial-up modems and the phones and the shit you see in the movies. And when I got out, one of the first things I did is I went to my friend's house and he was playing Myst. And my mind was just, and it felt like I was away for decades. I'm like, what happened? And I was even joking with my mom about like, doesn't feel like things have changed that much. And now that I'm older, 3 years is nothing. But I was in my 20s. I was very young when this happened, and it felt like an eternity. And so that's the internet. I mean, it's got nothing to do with this question, but it just blew my mind. And I knew that day, the minute I saw it, I'm like, holy shit, the world just changed. Like, this is everything.
Well, that's the thing is, I think it does have something to do with this question, because when this book was written, I think you could probably make an argument that they were parallel entities of equal or, sub-equal, strength. But now the way things are, media is nothing without technology. Like, your conduit to everything is through technology. So media, I think, has lost a lot of ground in the time between the book and this TV show being produced.
And that's the interesting part, that they portray technology as a kid. And that's how they keep him in line. Like, he has no idea how powerful he is. And just the fact that these are really the only two new gods that we see.
Well, we get Mr. World.
We get Mr. World, but are we getting in this? But we're here. We're at spoiler territory. In the book, Mr. World's an old god, so we only get to see two new gods. So is the show going to expand? And are they going to show? I mean, they refer to many new gods at the end of the book. They refer to kind of what I mean, the drug god, and I think they even talked about the car god. I know we've brought it up, the god of automobiles or something like that. That would be, or transportation. And there was a railroad god, and they just come and go. And I really do hope we see more of them. I don't think Neil Gaiman found them as interesting. I think the book was written more on concept, and it was more, it was more using the American gods as to tell another story of of immigration and his time in America. But the show is definitely going to expand more, and we're going to see a lot more shit. And also, throwaway stuff in a book where they just mention something real quick. When you show it, even though it's still throwaway, it has more meaning.
Yeah.
Especially
you can take a lot longer. Yeah. So you can take a lot longer to talk about a flower on the ground in a book than you can showing it on film.
But short answer to that is the internet is more powerful, I think.
Yeah, technology boy is more powerful. The only reason he wouldn't be is just because he hasn't been around as long, so he doesn't know how to wield his power, but the potential there is greater. So A. Howell writes about the new scenes between Mad Sweeney and Laura, but I wanted to extrapolate out a little bit. What are your thoughts about how the show is handling adding new material to the source material? She states that it seems a little social justice warrior, politically motivated, but there have also been some other scenes that just kind of glue together the narrative in a way, or make use of maybe an actor in a role that wasn't as interesting in the books or as big in the books, that they wanted to maybe make a little bigger in the show. But what do you think of how they've melded the two? Just your general thoughts on what she's asking about.
I agree with her. I think some stuff was in there purely for exposition and for politics. 100% agree with that. But some of it has worked. I mean, and it's okay. I mean, I've been reading and and so have you, watching stuff for years that I don't politically agree with. But if it's done in a certain way, I'm totally okay with it. If you're still telling the story and moving the story forward, sometimes I don't even notice. It goes right by me.
Right.
But I like the expanded stuff that they've done. Oh God, I just kicked the camera. Especially between Laura and Mad Sweeney, just because it brought an element of emotion into this. This was very unemotional. It was great visual, great storytelling, but it didn't feel, you needed somebody to like, and you needed something to like. And I was fascinated by it. It's like a Gilliam movie. I love Terry Gilliam. I fucking love him. He's visually spectacular, but a lot of his stuff, that's why I love Fisher King the most, because that's like his most emotional film. And you need something to connect to, I guess. And I don't know but that's what I liked about it. My coworkers hated. That was the one episode they hated, was the prayer for Mad Sweeney. And I saw a lot of, not hate, but just like, oh, I didn't like that one as much. It felt really out of joint, but I thought it was really necessary, and I sticking by it. That was one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, that's a more polarizing episode than I expected, because when I watched it, it flowed in sort of a poetic way, in a way that the other episodes hadn't up until that point. And I would say it's probably the most poetic episode of the show, in my opinion, right? So I was surprised that a lot of people were like, I didn't want any of that. I wanted to have the story move forward, right? So yeah, Mark, who's really awesome. I like him. He's commenting in the live chat that they were more comic relief for him, and I agree. I think up until that point they were, and I think that was why the episode was so unexpected for me, was because they weren't in that context. So yeah, I agree with you that this whole episode of added material to get Mad Sweeney, or to get Laura, because Laura in the story, right, she's hanging out with other people in the books, and she's fucking with stuff, right? Isn't she like with two girl like Ashley? Anyway, I feel like she has a different story in the book, where this is like all new material, right?
It is all new material. Her story in the book is really small. I mean, her character, she is lethal protector for Shadow. I mean, that's pretty much it. and as she decays, she starts like forgetting who she is and starts wandering and like just ends up places and not, and like, she her memories are wrong. But she just knows that she needs to get the shadow when he needs help. And yeah.
So I just thought it was interesting to have the second to last episode of the season be all new material with characters that had majorly been,
Well, I think that was the one opportunity they had to kind of give them feels, I hate to, I'm sorry, I'll never fucking use that word again. It gives them, because as they move on with the story, they are going to continue as comic relief, and that's their job, and they do it very well. So I think they saw this as their one opportunity to kind of tell a really good coming to America story and kind of wrap it in with, and that was the one way to connect it to the show, because I think Brian Fuller, they mentioned it. They're like, we want to do this. We want to do the entire one. We don't want to make this 5 minutes. We want to make this an entire story. This is the kind of episode you actually probably put in like in season 2 or 3. So they brought it in maybe a little early, but I think as time goes on, people may appreciate it more. Maybe they'll still hate it. I don't know.
So, in that same note, the girl with the hair says, so the girl with the hair left a comment thread where she corrected us on a lot of things. But one of the things within that thread that I really like, she says, John says that Sweeney must have been in love with Essie to have followed her to America. The gods didn't come to America because they were in love. They were brought here by their worshipers with an alternative version of themselves staying in their homeland with the followers there. So they kind of become a different version of themselves in America, right? My point, first of all, was more that like in her last moments, you saw that he had an affinity for. Like they have a moment at the end, and that's what I was trying to get at. Like I used the word love because it was a powerful emotion coming through Mad Sweeney in that moment that we hadn't seen before. But what do you we haven't really talked much about the versions of the old gods. When we discussed it, we talked about it more as like the old gods were coming to America and leaving their homeland. But the way she explains it makes a lot more sense, where they kind of create a new version of themselves for the American audience, if you will. What do you think of that?
Oh, well, the first season it tells the story of the entire book within the first season. And with the multiple Jesuses, you see it there. That's pretty, I mean, that's the story. So you come to America, you take a piece of the God, but Mad Sweeney explained it at the end, right before when he was taking, I'm forgetting her name right now, when he's taking her away, he's, we had some good times. There was some bad too. And and Mad Sweeney says it in the final episode. He's like, God's fuck with people. That's what we do. But they also love their believers. So I do believe he did love her, although he's horribly cruel to her sometimes too. The biggest question I have from this is, was Mad Sweeney a god?
Yeah, that's interesting. So he had a coming to America story, but we also know he was a king. We kind of talked about this, but we didn't really land. We know that he wasn't a god, right? So
no, he was like maybe a demigod. I think more of a magical creature. Is that what we talked about? Because somebody asked me at work, and he's
definitely not a demigod, because that would mean he was birthed from a god and a human. He has to be more of some sort of a mystical. And maybe he was birthed from. We don't know his parentage, right? So maybe he's a demigod. You're right. Sorry, I shot that down before thinking.
He's taken different forms over time. So maybe he did start out as a god, then he turned into a king. Then because it's what the believers.
Yes, but when Zeus turns into a human and then goes back up into, he's always a god, even when he's pretending to be a human.
Yeah.
So I don't. But then Laura says he's definitively not a god. So at the end of the season.
That's right. She did. So whatever. We love him. No matter what.
I actually want to go back to the last question a little bit, because we didn't really touch on it much. But what were some of the things that the show did that weren't part of the book that you like. What were some of the differences? I'd love to hear some that you can come to off the top of your head, and if you liked them or not.
Okay, I definitely what was not in the well, pretty much everything with Laura is not in the book. I mean, aside from her accident, but any bit of interaction with Mad Sweeney was great. But also that whole episode of when Laura goes back, when she crawls out of the grave and has to go to Audrey's house to get sewn up again, that was rad. That just that whole conversation they had with her in the bathtub and Laura was on the toilet. That was so fucking funny and wrong in every way. That was probably my favorite scene. And then Mad Sweeney. Okay, what they've done with the coin in particular. Now I don't know if they did. I got to think really hard.
Yeah. Well, just think about it on it. We'll get back
to coming to America part was, I mean, that was Mad Sweeney coming back, and I still don't know if the coin that she gave him was the one that he gave Laura, and that was his lucky coin that brought him back. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was, but yeah, I don't know that. But my favorite scene was the Audrey Laura scene in the bathroom. That was awesome. Definitely a standout. And can I continue? The change with Easter, making her like Dolly Parton and living in a mansion and being and just eating Easter, having an Easter party all the time with sweets and rabbits everywhere and a bunch of Jesuses, and her like liking him but having this resentment, like that was genius. That was great.
Yeah, moving Easter from the Bay Area to the South is not a decision that I would think that I would like. Like I'm the type of person who really likes Buffy and doesn't like True Blood, just because of the ambient, the whole tone. So tonally moving things to the South is not something that I'm typically looking forward to, but it worked so well here. And I love
it's the South, my man.
No, it's not it's the tone. It's like when you're it's the setting, right? Like it's like if I'm watching, like I don't like Heart of Dixie as much as I like the OC, right? Like it's
only you would use that analogy, bro.
I'm trying to think of similar things that have different tones, like Buffy, okay. True Blood.
But doesn't Easter make more sense as some kind of church lady?
Totally, I love it. And the casting is perfect. Yeah, I much rather would have Dolly Parton than like Joan, or who's like a Bay Area hippie rock star from the 70s. I'm blanking.
Janis Joplin?
Yeah, Janis Joplin. I kept thinking Joan Jett instead of Janis Joplin. I'd much rather have Dolly Parton in that role than Janis Joplin in that role.
Oh, thank God. I mean, I live here. I see enough of them.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe I
do not want to see them on my television. Okay.
So social justice warrior for life asks, I've always had a difficulty with the old gods. How would they measure up against the new gods? So I want to take a stab at this one first, and then we'll get your opinion. So look, I think the old gods are way more powerful than the new gods in general. We're still I think longevity matters, right? Like I think potential only means something when you've achieved something with it, and the new gods to me are all potential. They're all power, whereas the old gods show like wisdom and survival. And I think that whether or not you're more powerful, like the new gods are probably more powerful because they gain their power from worshipers, and more people are worshiping technology right now than Odin or nature. But that said, I think that there's something there in the mythological names that we're still using. Thor is a comic book character. You know what I mean? Like there's staying power in these stories and in these names and in these in the visage of these characters. So I would just have to say that in general, I think the old gods are much more powerful, but that doesn't mean that a new upstart can't, take him down in a battle here or there. So
Totally.
I don't know who I'd put my money on right now. Probably Technology Boy or Mr. World. But we'll get into Mr. World as well. But I would say, in general, I would be betting on Easter and Mr. Wednesday over Media, and Technology Boy.
How cool would it be if they used, instead of Thor committing suicide like he does in the book, that they use that his sellout to the new gods as he becomes a comic book character?
Yeah.
That would be rad. They should totally do that.
Yeah, or just a different version of it.
Yeah, and
Chris Hemsworth shows up as a cameo in American Gods.
Awesome. Oh man, I gotta watch how loud everybody's asleep right now. Sorry. That would be so cool. Yeah, it's experience. It just goes down to experience. Media and Technical Boy are clearly more powerful, but they're not the ones who started this. Wednesday is the god of war, but he is way more experienced. It's kind of like, my son, my oldest son is 21. He's 6'5". He towers over me. He could probably bench press me, but I'd still kick his ass. Okay, just because I'm old and I know what hurts. So, that's it.
I'm old and I know what hurts. Awesome. So now again, I'm going to restate this. We're about to get into some like serious spoiler talk. So if you're scared of learning about things that are in the books that aren't on the show, or that may happen on the show more precisely, I'm just letting you know we're about to get serious here.
It's going down.
It's going down. Because the next question is from Lame Bubbles Fly So High. I love that. Love it. What is a bigger mystery for me is, who is Shadow? I thought he might be Haiti, but it would make much more sense if my Ragnarok theory is right. So let's first talk about, is the coming battle actually Ragnarok, given that Mr. Wednesday is Odin and that's where they're all going? And secondly, or firstly, is Shadow Haiti?
No, I don't think Shadow's Haiti. Well, according to Wikipedia, and well, again, we're in spoiler territory. So Shadow is the son of Wednesday. So he is Thor's brother, which would make him Balder. Is it Balder? Is that how you pronounce it? And what is he the god of again, John?
Balder is the god of love, peace, forgiveness, justice, light, and purity.
Light and purity. So, but I guess that begs the question.
Forgiveness and justice are probably the.
So how did he make it snow, or did Odin make it snow?
Well, no, I think that gods just have certain powers,
general weather powers. That's
awesome. Yeah. I think he probably is just gotten some of his dad's powers. But that was very vague. Like, okay, can we talk about that a little bit? Sorry, he's Balder, who doesn't have anything to do with snow. So what was that episode really all about? Like him, like taking control and accepting his power was essentially the theme of that episode. It's like accepting your power, and his power is not to make things snow. So I'm still a little confused. Was that from the book?
Unless they make him Thor, but it's kind of snowy.
No, he doesn't do snow. He does lightning.
Or maybe they're making this different. Like I said, they're going off book. So
maybe he's a fucking frost giant.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be cool. No, that's, hey, the book, which I've read twice and listened to twice, confused me at times too. I mean, no, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so it's cool. But I died. Balder is definitely what I got out of it. But Mr. Wednesday, when they first go to the airport in the first episode, he said, when he's like trying to get his ticket, he's all playing the dumb old man. He's all, I'm here for my son's christening. He was telling the truth.
Yeah.
He was there for his christening, and he needs his son for something. And those of you who've read the book know what he needs it for. And it's not Ragnarok all the way, because I think Ragnarok is like the destruction of Asgard, I believe.
Yes.
So no, it's more of a
The fall of heaven, right? Is basically what it is.
yeah. So it's basically what Mexican Jesus did.
Right.
They,
Yes.
they told the whole story of it in the first season. That's why I think they're they may end it different, which would be cool. And I think they're going to go. They have their plans on going beyond the book. I read that in an interview that Neil Gaiman, like whatever he was talking about the second book of American Gods, and it's not gonna like whatever they do in the show. Like this book is not coming out until the show's done. So if it comes out at all, we'll see. I don't know, but Balder is the brother.
Yep.
According to, they don't come out and say it in the book. I mean, other than he's his son.
Right. But it's yeah. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit. God Francisco GODF is how his handle looks on. But I love this guy.
This guy's awesome.
Yeah, he's got the best insight into a lot of the shows
Seriously.
that we cover. And he interacts with us in a very positive way, which I enjoy. So he basically is asking about Mr. World. He's asking, how much of the book version do you think they will go with? Do you think they'll tweak certain aspects? So I want to get into who Mr. World is in the books, and it seems like they're already tweaking some things. But Gary, can you give us a little bit of a bio about Mr. World and his powers and his history and who he really is?
Okay, so I've always, to this day, been confused on what Mr. World is supposed to be the god of.
Yeah.
So I was just assuming he was the god of government and Bjark.
That's what I thought. He's like the NSA, right? He's like the god of the NSA,
the god of the CIA, or or the spy god or whatever. But he God, I just, even though we warned people about spoilers, I'm just really.
I don't think we need to give away like giant plot points, but like he walks around as like a Men in Black type character, right? Like he's like a suit in the books, and he's much more of like Men in Black type thing.
Yeah, unlike the last comment where I spoiled the shit out of stuff, I'm not going to come out and say his name, but I think they are going to go. I think they're going to go with the book on this one, but they're going to add a lot more.
I think they're tweaking it, because let's just say in the book, he may not be playing for the same team. Like,
okay. Yes, I totally agree with that. I think, where do we go with this one? I think he has his own. He has a partner in crime.
Yes.
Okay. In the show, I think if that's what you're asking, I don't think he has a partner in crime in the show. I think he might. Oh man, he's playing off like he does, but I think he has his own motivations. And I don't think he's going to go out the way he did. Quite. I mean, they might. They've already added more of him in the show than they really did in the book at all. He showed up a couple times in the book, but he's already showed up all those times in the first season.
Mr. World is the most prescient of the characters. If you were in creating the show today on a book written however many years ago, 20, 30,
15,
something,
16, something like that.
Sure, 15 to 20 years ago. Mr. World's the most prescient, because I think that the argument that America is having right now internally is like a globalist versus nationalist. What does it mean to be American argument, right? And I think that this idea of the American gods and the versions of them in America versus Mr. World is a story that, since they're adapting this in a very political way, makes a lot of sense for the show to tell. So I think the aspects of Mr. World that they're going to tweak are going to be in further exploring that argument, I think. So that's kind of how I would put it without giving away like way too much.
Mr. World is Mr. Globalist.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the things they're going to tweak are going to be like a very nationalist versus globalist argument. They're going to tweak it to be as globalist as possible, I believe. Do you agree with that?
I do, although I think the writers are probably
globalist.
Globalists. So yeah, I don't know how they're going to deal with that one. That'll be interesting because can you write from both sides? Brian Fuller has showed, he's been able to do that. And because I mean, if this show was just one-sided political garbage, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. So
yeah, I thought, look, I'm going to be really honest. The Anansi scene, that the Coming to America Anansi story, the tweaks that they made to that bothered me. But that was early on in the season. And since then, I think things have, like, all the Bilquist stuff going on, all of the Salim stuff early on, and the Coming to America culminated in me being frustrated early in the season. But since then, I feel like they've balanced it out beautifully, and I have become reinvigorated in my affection for the source material. I also, though, remember having a hard time getting into the book. So I'm thinking that the beginning I just don't love the beginning of this story, I think is where this is landing for me. We were actually talking about this before we got on air. I have this problem where I'll read the first chapter of a book several times and throw it to the side in lieu of something else. And then I'll pick it back up years later and just power through it because people are recommending it to me, and then love it as a whole, and forget the fact that I ever had a problem getting absorbed into the story. And I think American Gods may be one of those for me, where I tried to read it a few times and kind of put it aside a few times, and then just having so many people say, hey, you really should check this out, and getting into Neil Gaiman as a comic book writer reinvigorated my love for him and the story, and I gave it a real chance and then really, really loved it. So maybe the show it's just the beginning of it is just a little slow for me or something. I don't know. But I do think that it seemed much more political at the beginning to me than it ended up being in the end.
It was, but I think that that was done on purpose too. Like, here we're out here. This is what we're gonna do. And Brian Fuller's always been kind of that way, apparently. Yeah. But it tempered out, and the book is too. It's not all him.
Sure.
But the book does it subtly. Mr. Nancy's quite a bit different in the show than he is in the book.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I love Mr. Nancy in the book. That's the one character I'm still liking in the book more than in the show. I hope that he just didn't get enough time, though.
I just wanted to say the difference that bothered me in the Coming to America, because somebody in the live chat's asking, and I didn't. It's the monologue that he gives, and I may just be misremembering, but I felt like the monologue that he gave was much more trying to shoehorn current events into the political aspect of his monologue that I didn't like. He talks about, like, hey, life's gonna, like, he's on a slave ship and he's saying, like, it's not gonna get that much better, like, you're gonna get shot in the street. Like, we're getting he took a lot of the, like, Black Lives Matter narrative, like posters, and inserted it into the monologue, and where I agree with what he's saying, but in my TV it seemed a little soapboxy is all. Even though I agree with it, like, so that's it. I think it was just kind of changing tweaking the actual words coming out of people's mouths, the dialogue and the narrative to fit more of a modern political discourse is, I think, the major change to a lot of this stuff. But like I said, I think it balanced out by the end. I think that it stayed topical. Like the Coming to America story for Bilquist, I think, can be viewed through the same lens. I thought it worked really well. So maybe it's just in the execution of it.
Yeah, as it played out, I definitely came around on the Bilquist story. Definitely, that played out so beautifully. We
got a lot of comments about people who liked it and didn't like it from the very beginning. The Bilquist stuff that we didn't enjoy, at the beginning, the kind of gratuitous, vagina universe or whatever Technical Boy called it.
The vagina.
The Vagina Nebula. I felt was redundant the second time they did it in 2 episodes, and I think we were on the same page there. And some people agree with us, some people didn't. I didn't put any of the questions about Bilquist because it was all kind of just like, I think it was gratuitous, or I don't think it was gratuitous, and we already kind of played that out on the podcast that they happened on. But I agree with you. Once they kind of stopped just telling the same thing over and over with Bilquist and got into more aspects of what she was and where she came from, and I thought that character got a lot more interesting. I can't wait until next season when maybe they put a little bit of the gratuitous nature of that character aside, hopefully, and deal with her playing the role of potential double agent, right? Or an old god who's been corrupted by the new gods. Who knows? But I think she's more of a.
I see her as that's another great change from the book, because she's just a pathetic character in the book. I mean, it's just like it ends badly.
You mean she never gets her summer body, Gary?
She never gets her summer bod. And I think this is beyond double agent. I think this is like you were about to feed one of the oldest gods there is, who could just wipe the board clean. Just go, whack. I'm the only god left. If she gets enough power, so I think that's what I got out of that last part, is she's beyond a wild card. She could become dangerous for both sides equally, not just a double agent, which is super interesting, I think, and a great change from the book.
So let's get into the second part of this. So if anyone's in the live chat, you can continue to ask questions. In fact, please ask more questions, because that's all the questions that I've curated. But we were going to talk a little bit about general thoughts of the season, because this is our season breakdown or season feedback show. So so I just wanted to start the conversation here while people ask questions in the live chat, if they feel free to. Look, we do this podcast because we've consumed a lot of content, and we thought that it was within our skill set and our talents kind of led up to us being able to do something like this. I think that we both essentially have PhDs in this type of pop culture. I've read a bazillion young adult books, comic books. I've watched all these movies. I watch more TV than anyone should. That's how you get this wonderful physique that I have. And it's, I think that
sexy.
We were able to take the consumption that we had for so long and turn it into this. And we'll both kind of talk a little bit about, so I went to film school, at Emerson College for a year, and then moved back to San Francisco, went through a digital video production course. I've worked at Netflix, Microsoft, Technicolor, Deluxe. I've worked on projects for the BBC. Right now I'm working on projects with other podcasters. This is all stuff that I'm very passionate about and have kind of studied my whole life. And so when I'm breaking down something like American Gods, I'm coming from a place of love, right? Like, I am a fan of this stuff. I've always been a fan of this stuff, and I've never really wavered. And like a lot of times I get critical of these things because, we have certain expectations, or we've seen something we've liked that worked, and then when something doesn't work, it just kind of sticks out to us or whatever. And I think that in our discussion, we try to keep it fun. I always like to make jokes and have fun with this stuff, but we also want to be fair about it and not just go into every single, I don't want to go to an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast and say, this is the greatest show Joss Whedon has ever done. He can't do wrong. If there's a bad episode or a bad season or a bad show from somebody that I love, I'm still going to talk about the fact that I don't think it's great, right? Because I have a lot to compare it to. I don't know. What do you think, Gary? What do you think about these, just doing the podcast, and especially like this such touchy content? It's very polarizing content, American Gods.
I think it's just the content that excuse me. Where I come from on this, Nerd for Life, saw Star Wars within its first week of release. I got my ass kicked for wearing Star Wars shirts. I was an early member of the Star Wars fan club, read all my Bantha tracks. My first comic book was Marvel Team Up 42, Amazing Spider-Man and Vision, bought it at a 7-Eleven for 25 cents in San Marcos, California. I remember it like my first girl.
Yeah. Mine's Revenge of the Sidekicks. It's the Spider-Man with Moon Knight and Nova and Darkwing, or what's his name? Darkhawk? I don't know. One. Anyway, yeah, Revenge of the Sidekicks. Sorry.
So eventually turned it into a comic store. It just kind of happened. It kind of landed in my lap, and I bought a comic store in San Francisco, a fledgling little comic store. And in 2008 and in 2011, we won Best of the Bay, and one for the Chronicle and one some other SF site, and did it for 10 years. Did it successfully, made some mistakes, had a hell of a lot of fun. I've also been going to Comic-Con since I was 6. So I made a living selling stories. And when I sold my comic store, my co-host Dennis, who's on this podcast as well, his brother had died, and I had just sold the store, and we were really depressed. And I was very happy with the money. I was just like, I was regretting the decision, and which I don't now. And we said, hey, let's just start. We used to do a podcast at the store. So Dennis said, hey, let's start a podcast again. We did our first episode in a Starbucks in West Portal in San Francisco, and we ripped Batman versus Superman 2 years before it came out for like an hour, and decided and basically what it is these are the conversations John and I have all the time, or I had in the comic store. And that's what I missed the most, was just talking to the because comic fans are the best. I mean, out of any fan, comic fans are the best because they're critical, but they love it. And you have to love comics for the way they mistreat their fans. But to me, it's the perfect art form. It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup of art, because you get books and art together. And that led to this. And and I love talking about it. And it's also like your favorite, I used to be a Charger fan until they just moved, bastards. But I would criticize them all the time, but I loved it. And we do this because we love it. And I also have fun talking about stuff. And I can get negative, but I mean, I have no control what comes out of this yapper. Sorry. So, but I love it. That's why we do it. But I mean, I also, I worked for a little while, thanks to John. I worked at Technicolor and did some post work, and still an artist. I do, I've published comics, I've written comics, I've drawn comics. So yeah, it's in my blood. It's my life. And I need to do this, until I quit my day job and maybe open another comic store sooner than later. You never know.
And hey, we may know what's good without being able to make something. Like I can read really well, much better than I can write. So I think that this is within our skill set, or at least within my skill set. I like horror shows, a great comic, and you're much better at producing artistic works than I am. But I just like talking about
this. Is this in reference to just basically criticizing other people's work? I mean, like on the surface, that sounds shitty. It really does. I mean, and honestly, would I say everything we say to Brian Fuller's face or Neil Gaiman's face? Probably not. That would be rude. But
I've done it. I think I would.
I
think I would because I have. I think is
if I was why I can challenged, sure. But I mean, just unsolicited, hell no. Right. But they know, and also the same argument can be made about criticizing us in this podcast. I mean, you put yourself out there, you better be ready for it.
Sure.
I learned that from the comic store. You put this, I mean, I hate for owning a comic store. Somebody didn't like the way I set up my comic store and ripped me on Yelp. They didn't like the fact that I had to close on. Oh, I remember I got a negative Yelp review one time because I had to run down to San Diego because my father-in-law was having an emergency triple bypass, and I got a fucking negative Yelp review because we closed that day. And I was like, just life isn't fair, kiddo.
Yeah, Mark actually said you should always tell the cook that the food is bad. How else can he improve? And I agree with that. I mean, like,
Thank
we
you.
take criticism, and like I actually a few people said that my microphone was too soft, so I went out and I got a new microphone. Like, criticism
It was actually
can be
just your
good.
voice.
Am I just too? Do I talk?
It was just your voice. No, yeah, it's your voice. No, just kidding. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
thought you
did see
talked about-
those comments. Yeah, that was amazing. Hey, but, dude, thank you. No, if we're and believe me, if enough people say we're sucking at something, we will listen. Believe me.
Yeah. But that said, I want to get into just breaking down this season as a whole. You actually went and listened to the audio version of the book before the season started, like a smart person, while I was listening to other stupid shit like The Game, which is an excellent book, but not helpful for me being able to speak too intelligently about the source material of American Gods on this podcast. So what do you think of, like, everyone's saying it was a fairly faithful adaptation at the beginning, and it kind of strayed a little bit more each episode as it went on. And most people are happy with the changes. What do you think, Gary? How do you feel about how this was adapted for television?
I think I said it every podcast. I thought it was great. I love The Stray. I'm a fan of the Watchmen movie, which I'm now going to get criticism for, but I like it. But the biggest problem with it is for some parts, except for that horrible ending, it's too faithful to the book, and like if you've read the book, you don't want to like see the damn book again. Game of Thrones is a good example of, we'll see how it ends.
Walking Dead, I think, is
Walking Dead is the best example in the world of like straying from the book while the comic can remain good and the show can remain something else. I think American Gods can be that. It's a great start. But I absolutely love what they've done. I have no criticism of straying.
By the way, speaking of Watchmen, we're going to cover the Watchmen when it comes to HBO.
The TV series? Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
so stay tuned. I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned for that, guys. I know it's a while away, but yeah, that's exciting news.
Also happy. I know it's totally off subject, but that we actually have a friend getting a TV show made. So we are going to cover it. Derek Robertson, a friend of ours.
Get him on the show.
And he will be on the show once I can pin that guy down, probably at Comic-Con. And he drew Happy. He's done some like seminal work like Transmetropolitan and The Boys, but Happy is the first thing of his that's actually getting. Actually, no, Nightman was a TV series back in the day. He did the Nightman, but yeah, so we'll be covering that too. But yeah, I can't wait for Watchmen. That was a big, crazy announcement on a very big news day. But yeah. Oh, sorry.
So I would say that as far as I'm concerned, I'm not as tied to the source material as most. Like I've said on almost every podcast as well, I have an affinity for the source material because I look fondly back on listening or reading the book. But I don't remember it particularly well. Every time people would ask for recommendations, I would include American Gods in my list of recommendations for other people to read. But it has been so long that the details of the book, like the fact that Odin the fact that Mr. Wednesday was Odin. People did not like that we were talking about that before the reveal on the show. I forgot that was even like a secret, like that was a reveal that needed to happen, right? So for me, like the details have left my brain, but I still think of American Gods as one of those books that I recommend to everybody. So watching the TV show, I was worried because I'm not a Brian Fuller fan. I liked Dead Like Me, which is the show that most people don't like of his, and that's about it. Like there's not a lot of other shows that I've enjoyed of his. So for me, for me, I went into this with like I hope he doesn't screw up these books that I liked, right? Without even remembering what the books were really like. And so at the beginning, I was kind of frustrated because it was faithful, but everything tended to have like this, like I said, social justice warrior spin to it. And I didn't remember the books being like that. And so it was irking me. But once I kind of got over that feeling, and maybe it got less like that as it went on, or maybe I just said, fuck it, that's what this show is, and I know I like this book, so I really wanted to like the show. Once I got past that, I thought that the second half of the season was some of the best TV I've seen this year. I thought that I personally, and we talked about this, loved the Mad Sweeney Laura episode. It was like the Grove from The Walking Dead, which is my favorite episode of that show. It reminded me of an episode like The Body on Buffy, which are these like Emmy worthy, like I think it's an Emmy worthy episode personally. And then I thought the finale, I thought the lead up to that episode was great, and then I thought the finale was probably the best finale of the year so far. Well, I'm sure Game of Thrones will probably kick its ass, most likely this year.
I don't know.
But so far, I'm very impressed, and I'm impressed because I didn't know if Fuller was going to be the right guy for this. And by the time I saw, all the Jesuses and Easter, like bringing famine to the United States, and Technical Boy and Mr. World having like a Broadway off with Odin, like I loved everything about the ending of the season. So there's not much to complain about there. It's pretty spectacular.
It was pretty spectacular. I loved Crispin Glover's voice at the end when they were doing the Broadway off, and it was just kind of this weird, like distant mumbling, but super creepy, and just like Crispin Glover's fucking so great. And said it before, I'll say it again. He could play the same character, and that character is in another thing, and he could play that character in that other thing.
Yeah.
And it would be just as good, if not a little better, than the guy playing it now, who's still good. Don't get me wrong. But oh, excuse me. The source material, I wasn't that attached to. It's a good book. It's good. It's not Neil Gaiman's best work. And it's not like, Hitchhiker. When I saw the Hitchhiker movie, I was just bummed. I was just so bummed.
Yes.
Been waiting so long for that, and
that was me with Golden Compass. Disney did that to both of us, where they took a property that we loved and just like ruined it, like
big old steaming all over it. But this book I think was made to play with. I think Gaiman himself has gone back and said, you know what, man, I mean, like he even did it, dude. No writer goes back on the 10th anniversary and adds stuff to their book, except for maybe Neil Gaiman, and changes it significantly. And, and this was ripe for a series. I mean, any other writer would have made this 7 or 8 books by now. But, Gaiman's a big star, doesn't need to write all the time. And, he's got a rock star wife and a good life, and a damn good life. But no, I think the show will greatly improve on that. And maybe, Hollywood, which is so running out of ideas. I mean, they're forget young adult novels, find books that have potential that just haven't been fulfilled, and fulfill it, and God, I don't know that we were just talking about the 8-episode series seems so perfect.
Yes.
Like that's a perfect number. So that could replace the movie. You just put everything into the 8-episode series, and
give us 5 hours instead of 2.5 hours. It was perfect.
Freaking Taboo was awesome, and that was 8 episodes, and Legion turned out pretty good, and that was 8 episodes. So, I have no problems with it.
You know what they need to be adapting? We need to get adaptations of web serials. There's a web serial out there by Drew Hayes called Superpowers, which I've listened to in compiled form as audiobooks. That's super good. There's one called Worm. There are these really great web serials out there that are basically just books released a chapter at a time on the internet for free. And I think that's the next place. Mark my word, that's the next place I think some of these filmmakers and TV show producers are going to start mining. I think we're going to start to see some some YouTube channels that do web serial videos and written word web serials adapted into TV shows, because it's just so much good content out there for that sort of stuff.
There's still a few comics they got to get to. Transmetropolitan needs to be made. I mean, this is the perfect time for it, and it's one of my favorite comics. That's why.
Speaking of comic books, the grand prize winner is going to win some comic books from our contest this season for YouTube commenters. Yeah, so we're going to be giving away some Neil Gaiman. We're giving away Neil Gaiman comic books. So if I messaged you on YouTube, if I replied to your comment on YouTube, please email Gary. I believe it's nerdrotics@gmail.com, and he will get your information. Mark, I think you were one of the winners, so it may actually be you. You're in the live chat to get the full run of 1602. Which is the comic book that I met Gary buying in his store. The first time I met Gary, I was buying that comic book. Not maybe that exact one, but a version of that. So it's a special comic book to us, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
I'll talk and show it off. So this one is not the actual number one. You're gonna get a signed number one by Richard Isanov, who did these amazing like wood grain colors. It's like they're wood etching. It's just freaking brilliant. Andy Kubert art on the inside. And if I can find it, I know I've got a Neil Gaiman signed copy somewhere in my house. I can't promise I'm going to find it though in time, but we're going to get those gift cards out in the next couple days. I know I said sooner, but life gets in the way. And thank you all for watching, and we'll get this out to you.
If you got a comment or a reply to your comment on YouTube, go check it and see if I replied. It has the email address there. Just reach out to Gary and he'll send it. You can also head over to nerdrotic.com, www.nerdrotic.com, for all of our shows that we cover. You can see all the TV stuff, all the movie stuff, and we have some news shows as well. Please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdroticpodcast. There we post all of our reactions to news, events, trailer reactions, that sort of stuff, as well as links to all the content that we put out. Follow us on Twitter. I'm John Reed 16, JONREED 16. On Twitter, Gary is at Nerdrotics. That's our official Twitter feed. You can also find us on Instagram. Search for Nerdrotic there. Please comment on our YouTube videos. If you comment with a question, we will read them on our feedback shows for whatever show we're covering. Like us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube. All those things help us a lot to build our channel, which we've been doing a pretty great job of lately. You guys are listening, you're commenting, you're interactive. It's really what we wanted to build. So thank you guys for doing all that and continue to do it. And please, lastly, subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us a review or a star rating there. Again, it helps us a lot move up the search engine algorithm rankings so that more people can see our content, and it helps us. And we will try to again answer your questions live on air when we have the chance. Anything else, Gary?
No, I want to mention we're going to be doing Preacher next. That is coming up. Wow, tomorrow. And that's going to be our next show. Then Game of Thrones. We're finishing up Doctor Who. We're going to be doing Happy, all the CW shows. If anybody has a suggestion for something they want to watch and it's in our wheelhouse, we are open to it.
There's that show that NBC is doing this summer that is by the same people who wrote True Blood. We should take a look and see if
and 6 Feet Under.
The writer of the books. The True Blood.
The books are.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife might want to do that one. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Things will pop up. We're going to review movies, and
it's called Midnight Texas. Sorry.
We have our regular podcast that is at our website and on iTunes. It's just the Nerdrotic podcast where we talk about everything. So, and that's the oldest podcast we got. So yeah, that's it. May the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.